When you hear the phrase dirty bomb, you probably picture a blinding flash and a mushroom cloud levelling a city block. Erase that from your mind. That is a Hollywood fairy tale. A radiological dispersal device is not a weapon of mass destruction. It is a weapon of mass disruption. The detonation will sound exactly like a conventional car bomb. The flash will be brief. The real killer is completely invisible, and it rides on the wind. If you do not understand the physics of what happens next, you are already a casualty. The payload of an RDD is usually stolen medical or industrial isotopes. Cesium-137 or cobalt-60 strapped to a few hundred pounds of high explosives. When that truck detonates in the financial district, the blast wave shatters glass for blocks. But the overpressure is just the delivery mechanism. The explosion pulverizes the radioactive material into microscopic dust. The heat creates a thermal updraft, forming a plume. That plume gets caught in the urban canyons between skyscrapers. You are no longer dealing with a bomb. You are dealing with fluid dynamics. The instinct of the crowd will be to run. They will flood the streets, coughing on the pulverized concrete and drywall dust. What they do not realize is that they are inhaling the weapon itself. Every breath draws radioactive particulate deep into their lung tissue. You do not run with the crowd. You observe the wind direction. You look at the dust settling on the hoods of gridlocked cars. You have minutes to secure an airway before the fallout footprint blankets your sector. Hope is not a strategy. Most people guess they have enough food and the right gear to wait out a fallout event, but the math says otherwise. When the dust settles, guessing gets people killed. Go to protocolsurvival.com right now, calculate your survival score, and enroll in our free Catastrophe Survival 101 course. Get the training before you need it, because when the sirens start screaming and the cell towers jam, you will default to your highest level of preparation. Do not be caught empty-handed. Hour 0. The shockwave hits before the sound. If you are within 10 blocks of the epicenter, the physical blast is your primary acute threat. Glass fragments become shrapnel, moving at hundreds of feet per second. The structural integrity of immediate buildings is compromised. Your standard operating procedure here is immediate cover. Get away from windows, drop to the floor, protect your head. Wait for the secondary falling debris to settle. Only then do you assess the invisible threat gathering outside. To survive the plume, you have to understand what is in it. The isotopes used in dirty bombs emit 3 distinct types of ionizing radiation. First are alpha particles. These are heavy and sluggish. They travel maybe 2 inches in the air. A piece of paper or your dead layer of skin stops them cold. But if you inhale an alpha emitter, it is game over. It sits in your lung tissue, dumping massive amounts of destructive energy directly into your soft organs until you bleed out from the inside. This is why airway protection is non-negotiable. You do not dig an N95 mask out of your bag just to keep yourself alive. You pull that mask out so your child does not inhale a microscopic piece of cobalt-60. You do it so your kid does not look at you a week later coughing up blood, asking why their chest hurts when there are no hospitals left to take them to. You secure their airway first because guilt is a hell of a lot heavier than fear. Next are beta particles, high-speed electrons. They travel a few feet and will penetrate the top layers of your skin, causing severe beta burns. Heavy clothing stops them. Finally, you have gamma rays. Gamma is weightless energy. It penetrates hundreds of feet through the air and passes right through human tissue, causing systemic DNA damage. You cannot filter gamma out of the air. The only thing that stops gamma radiation is dense mass. Lead steel, solid concrete, or packed earth. Your first thought will be to get to your vehicle and drive out of the city. Look out the window Traffic is already gridlocked. Accidents block every major intersection. Getting into your car is a death sentence. A standard vehicle offers almost zero shielding against gamma radiation. The weather stripping on your car doors is not airtight. As the radioactive fallout rains down, your car simply becomes a contaminated glass box, trapping you inside the hot zone while you sit in unmoving traffic. If you are on foot, you must use the inverse square law to your advantage. The physics dictate that if you double your distance from a radioactive source, your exposure drops to 1/4 of the original amount. Distance is your primary force multiplier. You move away from the blast site briskly, but you do not run. Running increases your respiration rate, drawing unfiltered air deeper into your lungs. You walk fast, keeping your improvised filter tight over your mouth and nose. You are not looking for your home. You are looking for mass. The CDC protocol is simple. Get inside, stay tuned. You need a large, structurally sound commercial or residential building, brick and concrete. You get inside immediately to put as much shielding between yourself and the aerosolized threat as possible. Every foot of concrete between you and the street cuts your gamma exposure down. You are playing a game of geometry against an invisible enemy. Hour 4. You are inside a municipal building or an office high-rise. The doors are locked. Now you face the difference between exposure and contamination. Exposure means the radiation passed through you. Contamination means the radioactive dust is physically sitting on your jacket, your hair, your shoes. If you are contaminated, the source is actively on you. You must execute an immediate mechanical decontamination before you move deeper into the shelter. You must strip the threat away. Carefully removing your outer layer of clothing removes up to 90% of radioactive contamination. Do not pull shirts over your head. Cut them off if you have to. If you must pull it over your head, roll the garment outward, trapping the dust inside the folds. Hold your breath while doing this. Place all contaminated clothing in a heavy-duty plastic bag and tape it shut. Push that bag into a far corner of the room. You have just isolated the primary source of beta radiation. If the building has running water, you take a shower immediately. Use warm water and mild soap. Do not scrub hard enough to break the skin. If you break the skin, you give the isotopes a direct path into your bloodstream. Wash your hair, but absolutely never use hair conditioner. Conditioner contains cationic surfactants. These chemicals will act like a glue, binding microscopic radioactive particles directly to the protein shafts of your hair. You will literally cement the fallout to your head. If the water mains are shut off, you rely on dry decontamination. Use wet wipes or damp rags from your kit to wipe down your face, hands, and any exposed skin. Wipe in one direction. Do not smear the dust back and forth. Fold the wipe, throw it in the plastic bag, and use a fresh one. Clean your ears and blow your nose repeatedly. You are mechanically removing the alpha and beta emitters from your body surface. Once you are clean, you move to the core of the building. You find an interior room on a middle floor. Not the top floor where fallout settles on the roof, not the ground floor where the street level is contaminated, a middle floor interior office with no windows. First priority is killing the HVAC system. You cannot have forced air sucking exterior fallout into your safe room. Use duct tape and plastic sheeting to seal the air vents and the gaps under the doors. You are creating a microenvironment sealed off from the toxic atmosphere outside. Day 2. The adrenaline fades and the reality of the lockdown sets in. The grid is likely down in the blast sector. The silence is heavy. You are sitting in the dark with your family, surrounded by concrete walls. You hear sirens in the distance, but you know they are not coming for you. First responders are dealing with the mass casualty zones and establishing perimeter checkpoints. This is where the psychological grind begins. The enemy is invisible, and your only defense is waiting. Hydration becomes your limiting factor. You cannot drink from the tap. Municipal water supplies might be compromised by fallout settling in open reservoirs or broken mains sucking in groundwater. You rely entirely on the bottled water in your jump bag. You do not drink it casually. You ration it so your child does not have to cry from dehydration in a dusty sealed room. You manage the supply with strict discipline because nobody is bringing you fresh water anytime soon. With the water off, sanitation degrades rapidly. Toilets do not flush. You must designate a corner of your sealed area for waste, using heavy-duty contractor bags and a bucket. Human waste breeds disease rapidly in enclosed spaces. Use bleach or chemical deodorizers from your kit to suppress the biohazard. Every time you open that bag, you risk cross-contamination in your safe room. Keep it sealed tight. In a grid-down urban environment, dysentery will kill you just as fast as radiation. You are staying put because of the physics of radioactive decay. The highest hazard is immediately following the event. As time passes, the intensity of the radiation drops. The isotopes are burning off their energy. Every hour you spend behind those concrete walls significantly reduces your overall dose. Time distance and shielding. You have maxed out distance by escaping the blast. You have maxed out shielding with the building. Now you must let time do the heavy lifting. Day 5. You start hearing people moving in the building. Stragglers, desperate people who did not shelter in place properly. They are likely highly contaminated and looking for food or water. You do not open your door. If you break the seal on your room, you invite their contamination into your clean space. You have to harden your heart. Your responsibility is to the people inside your circle. Let them pass. Maintain silence and discipline. You cannot save everyone. Cell towers are overwhelmed, destroyed, or out of diesel for their backup generators. Your smartphone is a brick. Your only connection to the outside world is a battery-powered analog NOAA weather radio. You sit in the dark listening to the broadcasts. Authorities will use these frequencies to read out plume modelling data. They will tell you which way the wind carried the fallout and which zones are considered hot. This analog receiver is your only map of the invisible battlefield. Someone in your group suggests taking potassium iodide pills. You shut that down immediately. Ki pills only protect the thyroid gland from radioactive iodine. Radioactive iodine is a byproduct of a nuclear reactor meltdown or a fission bomb. It has a very short half-life and is almost never used in a dirty bomb. Taking Ki now will do absolutely nothing against cesium or cobalt. It is a false sense of security. It will not protect you from external gamma or inhaled alpha emitters. Day 10. The food is running low. You are living on high-calorie protein bars and sealed MREs. You restrict movement to preserve calories. The human body burns fuel just dealing with the stress of the lockdown. The lethargy sets in. You watch your family sleep away the hours because there is nothing else to do. You monitor their breathing, looking for any signs of acute radiation sickness, nausea, vomiting, fatigue. So far, the shielding has held. The concrete did its job. When the grid goes dark, the cloud goes with it. You cannot Google how to build a dry toilet or filter fallout when the cell towers are dead. You need a command center that works completely offline. I built Protocol Survival to be that system. Secure your inventory, digitize your analog preps, and access your free training modules right now while you still have a signal. Download the Protocol Survival app today. It is your localized database when the rest of the world goes blind. You might be thinking that the National Guard will roll down your street in mop gear by day 3, passing out water and evacuating civilians. Let us dismantle that fantasy. The military operates on logistics and safety perimeters. They will not send unshielded convoys deep into an unmapped hot zone just to pull out stragglers. They will establish a cordon miles away and wait for the radiation levels to drop. You are inside the quarantine zone. Nobody is coming to knock on your door. Day 15. The water is gone. You cannot wait any longer. You have to break the seal on your safe room. You prep your gear. N95 respirator goes on tight. Gloves. Long sleeves taped at the wrists and ankles. You leave your family in the sealed room and step out into the hallway. The air smells like pulverized cement and copper. It is eerily quiet. You are stepping back into the hot zone to scout for resources. You are the designated scout, and a single mistake brings death back home. You move through the building utilizing extreme caution. You do not touch the walls. You avoid areas where dust has accumulated. You are looking for unbroken vending machines, water coolers, or abandoned office kitchens. Every step kicks up microscopic dust. You keep your breathing steady. You check the exterior windows for the first time in 2 weeks. The city looks entirely normal, except for the lack of movement and the grey film covering every surface. The invisible killer remains. You recall the NOAA broadcast mapping the fallout footprint. The wind blew northeast, carrying the heaviest particulate matter across the river. Your building is on the western edge of the plume. This means your external gamma hazard is lower than the epicenter, but the localized alpha and beta threat in the dust is still severe. You map a route in your head. You cannot just wander the streets. You need to identify a decontamination corridor before you even think about returning to your family. You find an intact water cooler in an accounting office. As you secure the jug, you hear a noise. Another survivor. A man steps out of a cubicle. He is not wearing a mask. His clothes are covered in grey dust. He has visible beta burns reddening the skin on his neck and hands. He asks for help. The human instinct is to approach him. The survival protocol demands you step back. He is highly contaminated. If you touch him, you transfer the isotopes to your own gear. You must maintain distance. You tell him to stay back. You explain the concept of distance and contamination. He is confused lethargic from radiation sickness. He takes a step toward you. You draw your deterrent and command him to stop. This is the brutal reality of an RDD event. You are not a hazmat medic. You cannot cure acute radiation syndrome with a kind word. You have to protect the clean zone. You back away, leaving him in the office. You carry the water jug back to the staging area with a heavy conscience. Returning to your safe room is the most dangerous part of the scout mission. You stop in the hallway outside your door. You strip off the outer layer of tape gloves and clothing, rolling it inward just like day one. You leave the contaminated clothes in the hall. You wipe down the water jug with a damp rag. Only then do you knock the specific signal for your family to briefly open the door. You pass the clean water inside and slip through, sealing the plastic sheeting immediately behind you. With fresh water secured, you return to the radio. Authorities announce the establishment of civilian decontamination centers at the edge of the quarantine zone. They give the cross streets. It is 5 miles away. Walking 5 miles through a contaminated urban center is a massive risk. But staying in a depleting shelter is a guaranteed slow death. You now have a hard data point, an extraction vector. You begin planning the exfiltration, analyzing the route for choke points and high radiation zones. Day 20. The decision is made. The supplies are critical, and the radiation levels outside have decayed enough to risk a rapid transit. You construct improvised PPE for your family. Trash bags taped over jackets, N95 respirators sealed tight to their faces. You brief them on the rules of movement. Do not touch anything. Do not stop to rest. Walk in the center of the street, away from the buildings where fallout has washed down into the gutters. You are leaving the concrete shield behind. You emerge onto the street level. The city is a ghost town. Abandoned cars litter the avenues. Wind blows trash and radioactive dust down the empty asphalt. The psychological impact of seeing your city hollowed out is staggering. But you cannot freeze. You keep a fast, steady pace. You act as the point man, scanning the route ahead. You are looking for two things: hazard zones, where dust has drifted into deep piles, and other survivors who might be desperate enough to ambush you for supplies. Social collapse in the hot zone is not loud. It is quiet and desperate. You spot a small group of people clustered around a broken fire hydrant trying to drink the stagnant water. They look at your intact gear. You do not make eye contact. You adjust your path to give them a wide berth, keeping your hand on your weapon. In a grid-down scenario, a man dying of radiation sickness has nothing to lose. You project hard target indicators. You do not stop until you are out of their line of sight. You navigate the urban canyons using the wind at your back. If the wind kicks up dust, you want it blowing away from your faces. You cross intersections, carefully avoiding the storm drains. Rain over the past few weeks has washed massive amounts of radioactive particulate into the sewer system. The drains are localized hotspots of gamma radiation. You walk down the yellow line in the center of the road. Distance is still your force multiplier, even while on the move. Mile 4. You see the floodlights in the distance. The military checkpoint. Razor wire and concrete barriers block the avenue. Hazmat teams in full encapsulation suits are hosing down the street. Soldiers hold the perimeter with rifles at the low ready. You stop your family. You raise your hands and walk slowly. They bark commands through a bullhorn, telling you to strip your outer layers before crossing the line. You have reached the edge of the quarantine zone. You survived the long haul. You comply with their orders. You peel the plastic bags off your kids. You drop your gear. You step into the decontamination tent. Cold water washes over you. A technician runs a Geiger counter over your body. The clicks are slow and steady. Background noise. You are clean. They hand you paper scrubs and point you toward the medical triage tents. You look at your child. They are shivering, but they are breathing clear air. The guilt lifts from your chest. Your protocol kept them alive. The media will eventually call it a tragedy. Politicians will argue over the rebuilding efforts. But you will know the truth. The concrete did not save you. The MREs did not save you. The physics saved you. Understanding the mechanics of a silent threat gave you the blueprint to navigate a nightmare. The grid is not what keeps the lights on and the water flowing. The grid is just what keeps the monsters out. And when those monsters get in, you better know exactly how to lock the door.